When you create an Excel workbook, you should almost always allow your users to change them. That said, if you create a workbook or worksheet and don't want it to be changed, you need to detect when a change occurs and use event handlers to manage the change. Managing the change might mean reversing it, or it could mean asking the user if they are sure they want to make that change. In either case, you can use the worksheet change event. I'll flip back over to the Visual Basic Editor to show you what that code looks like. As the name implies, the worksheet change event detects whenever a specific worksheet has been changed. To define the event, you display the Visual Basic Editor and open the code module for the worksheet in which you want to enable the event. So here, I'm in the code module for Sheet 1, Orders, and you'll notice that I have the structure of the event here. For events, there's something that you have to look up in the Excel help system to know exactly what you need to do when you create the event. In this case, I've used the private keyword, which prevents other workbooks from seeing this subroutine. That helps because you don't want every worksheet to have access to this worksheet change. Otherwise, you couldn't change anything. So it's a private subroutine named worksheet_change, and it receives a target, in this case a cell range, as a value. You don't need to worry too much about the by_val target as range. You just need to remember to put it there. Now let's take a look at the rest of the code to see how it operates. First, I create a variable named response. It's an integer. And then I display a message box. It says, this is an automatically generated worksheet. Are you sure you want to change it? And it displays a message box that has an OK button and a cancel button. Let me show you what that looks like by trying to change a worksheet. Let's say that I change it to Syracuse. When I try to make the change, Excel displays the message box I just showed you, and I can either click OK or cancel. If I click OK, Excel accepts the change. And I'll switch it back to Albany and do the same thing. So in other words, the message box that I created has two possible responses, OK and cancel. You handle that output in two ways. First, you assign it to a variable, that's the integer, which will either have the value 1 or 2. If the value is 1, then you display the message box worksheet value changed. On the other hand, if the user clicks cancel so that the change doesn't happen, then it runs this code here. Ignore the commented out portion for a moment. That will be important in a second though. So if the user doesn't say OK, do the change, then the code runs the application's undo method, which is equivalent to clicking the undo button on the quick access toolbar or pressing Ctrl+Z, and then it displays the message box change not completed. Now let's see what happens when I do that. I'll go back here and I will change it to Syracuse. Do I want to change it? Oh, no, I guess I don't. So I will click cancel. When I do, I get the message box again. That's because when I undid the change, the worksheet changed, which triggered the event again. So if I click cancel again, it happens again. Now if I click OK, the worksheet value changed, change not completed, and it steps through the rest of the code several times because that's the number of times I invoked the event. So now let's go back and I will show you why the code that's commented out is important. This is application.enableEvents equals false. And at the bottom, enable events equals true. What happens when in VBA code you are performing an action that triggers an event, you need to have event handling turned off as you do so. To do that, you use this statement, application.enableEvents equals false. When you're done making your changes, then you can turn it back on. Enable events equals true. You should always keep this code block as short as possible so that you don't accidentally leave event handling turned off. If you have a large program and you have event handling turned off in one place and you don't turn it back on, then your code will fail for no apparent reason. But with this in place, I will go back to the main worksheet and I will make my change again. Albany. It's an automatically generated worksheet. Are you sure you want to change it? Oh, no, I guess I don't. So I will cancel. Excel undoes the change, and I can click OK to dismiss the message box that says the change was not completed. Event handlers can be tricky to work with, but always remember that setting the Enable Events property to false will let you change your workbook without triggering the worksheet change or similar events. Remember though, turn it back on as soon as you can so that your code will work as expected.